Welcome to the Career Connections podcast, where recruiting leader Stephanie Alston and operations leader Amie Thompson share real-world insights to help you navigate the job market, build confidence, and find the right career fit. Let's get into today's episode.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode. Today is all about networking. And Alston, I am CEO of BGG Enterprises, and we are a full-service executive recruitment agency. And joining me today is my friend Amie Thompson, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here with us on this episode on networking. My name is Amie Thompson. I'm the introverted entrepreneur. I am currently getting better at networking. So this episode will be a lot of fun for us to talk about, but I have a fractional executive company that I work on, which is Optiva Solutions Group, OSG. I do fractional chief of staff work, operational work, marketing, and such. I'm also actively looking for a full-time job. And so again, this topic is very, very crucial to me right now.
I love it. I love it. So we're going to jump right in. I recently read a stat that 70% of candidates are actually finding their jobs through their network. Now, for me, Amie, I suck at networking. Like, I freeze up, I get nervous. And most people are shocked to know that because my degree is in journalism. However, and mass communications, it's quite a plot twist, but it terrifies me. So I'm curious, how do you even begin with networking?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of the blind leading the blind in a sense. I am not good at networking nor great, but I try. And one of the things that's been helpful for me, especially as an introvert, is understanding that networking can be curated to you. It can be adjusted to you and the things that you like. So I used to think networking meant going to an event, going to some kind of mixer. And I will tell you, I went to one a couple of weeks ago and it was terrifying. I did meet a couple of people there, but it was just so overwhelming. There were so many people there and I misinterpreted the invitation. So I thought it was like an event and they would have speakers and things like that. And it was not. It was literally 2 hours of just mingling.
Oh, no.
So I stayed for 30 minutes and then I was out. I was like, I cannot do this. But what I would say is networking can mean a lot of different things. So you do have the opportunity to find what works for you. And what works for me is kind of one-on-one or small group things. And so it's slower, but it's one person at a time. Meet somebody I used to work with or somebody I met at an event, reaching out to them, hey, are you available for lunch? And having a conversation. Who else in your network do you think I should meet to help me with this, or vice versa? What can I help you with? And then you're meeting people one at a time. That I have found works for me. And that's still networking, right? You're still expanding your network. So I really think the key is find what works for you. Otherwise, you'll be fearful of it and you won't do it. And it's very important when you're talking about job search.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think I agree with you in terms of starting small, right? So I think about when I first started my business, I had no idea like how I was going to be able to build up my clientele because I knew that I was not great at networking. Like I knew how to build genuine relationships with people once we were introduced. But like this whole game of walking around and working a room, that was really hard for me.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, my very first client, I actually met standing in line when my daughter Caitlin was in preschool. Literally, there was a lady standing in front of me and she asked me, oh, where do you work? I don't know why she asked me that, but she asked. And I told her at the time, I was like, hey, I own this recruitment agency. And she was like, oh, wow, we're looking for a recruitment agency. And at the time she worked at McKinney Advertising and she led HR. And so that instantly helped me land my very first client within my business. Yeah. But it wasn't because I worked the room. It's because some complete stranger decided to ask me where I work.
That's right.
But for me, I'm not the person who's always going to take the first step to ask, a question or to introduce myself. If I'm in a networking setting and someone happens to come up to me while I'm standing in the corner, that works out great for me. But otherwise, like you said, you were there for 30 minutes. I probably would have left in 10. But it's not that I don't like people. It's just a scary thing for me.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, how do you step beyond that fear when you find yourself in these situations where networking is so critical?
Yeah. I think it's partially looking at the data, which especially for it's really similar for job searchers,
Yeah.
job searching, and business owners, because like you said, your referrals are probably the best way that you bring in income for your business. It's not because you're cold calling people all the time or because you're using ads and things like that. Most small businesses get business because they're referred by other people. And so having a strong network is important regardless of, what you do, either a job or a business. But I think you just have to do it. One of the things I teach some of my other students is, nervousness doesn't go away and confidence doesn't come when you wait around, right? You
Mhm.
have to actually act and do something in order to get confident doing that thing. And you might be nervous 10 times into networking, but you still have to do it because you got to think about the outcomes. You got to think about what am I because I'm really not trying to network. I'm trying to find a job or I'm
Right.
trying to get business for my business. So you've got to think about what are your goals and what the outcome is. But the nervousness, it just can't it might, but it shouldn't stop you from trying. And like I said, if you find what works for you, what works best for you, that can help. And then if you do it over and over again, you start to get more confidence. I'm a part of a networking group that meets on Mondays. That's only for people looking for jobs and mostly executives, mostly director level jobs. And so it's a virtual thing, it's not in person. So it's very introvert friendly. You're sitting at your desk and, you're introducing yourself, yes, but it's a really safe space and you're not having to drive somewhere. So it's helpful. Find things that work for you. And then on that call, they encourage you to reach out one on one to people. And then what happens, every person I have reached out to or that's reached out to me, I end up being introduced to someone else. And so you're constantly building your network just one at a time. So that fear might not go away right away, but you've got to think about your end result. Are you looking to get business? You're looking to get a job, then this is a path that you really have to take. You really have to take.
So I love what you just said about think about the goal and the outcome and not necessarily the networking. And I think that is
Yeah,
probably the key that will unlock the door for you not to be as fearful is that, like you said, you're not thinking about, oh, I need to meet all these people. You're thinking about, I need to meet someone great because I need a job, because
that's
then it
right.
turns into more of a necessity in your mind. So it's like tricking yourself to think, hey,
Yeah.
this is really why I'm doing this. It's really not about this little thing that I have to do in order to get said outcome. So
Yep.
you mentioned this group that you join in the
Mhm.
every Monday morning, which sounds like something that I would love because it sounds like it's online. Is that correct?
Mhm. It is.
So let me ask you this: do the rules change in online networking versus in person?
I don't think so for me. And the reason I say it, and I said it a little bit in jest, but I'm pretty serious about it. The reason I say it's introvert friendly is because it is much more comfortable. You don't feel as judged. You don't feel, in my opinion, as nervous as
Yeah.
if you were in a room. Like there's usually 20 people on the call. But if I was there with 20 strangers, I would not talk as much as, I might talk on this call. So again, it's about finding what works for you. But I feel like the rules are the same, but I just think it feels different when you're virtual. And so you still, I mean, in the time I've only been attending for maybe a little over a month, and I've probably had individual meetings with like 10 people. I would never have talked to 10 people, you know what I mean, in a room in real life. I just wouldn't. And so it's just easier to put in the chat, hey, my name is Amie. Here's my LinkedIn. Please reach out if you're in the Raleigh Durham area. I'd love to connect with you. Like it's so easy to just put that in a chat instead of saying that to different people in real life. So for me, I find the online forums and online groups are really, really helpful. Like I said, networking can be a lot of different things. So don't get caught up that it's just this one way to do it or one thing.
No, that makes sense. So when I'm networking online, how do I even start to navigate that, right? So let's say I go onto my LinkedIn and I see that I have thousands of connections. How do I even know where to begin in terms of who I need to reach out to, especially when I'm
Yeah.
looking to take on my next opportunity?
Yeah. So I would say start with people who may have a similar role to what you're looking for. As an example, let's say you're a project manager and you're interested in finding another role in that area, then see who in your network has that type of role. Maybe you haven't talked to that person in a while. Maybe you used to work with them. Just reach out and say hi. Hey, I was just checking in. How are things going with you? And then I'm looking for my next opportunity. I just wondered if you'd be available for a quick video call, or maybe we'll meet up if it's somebody that's local. I would say most people probably don't do that. So most people probably don't get those messages, and they'll be really glad that somebody reached out, and probably would say yes. But you have to start somewhere. And I would say that's probably the easiest, is starting your network. Then the next step would be going into like the network of people that you know. So you might not know them, but you might see someone who has that ideal job that you're looking for. Then you ask for an introduction. I saw that you're connected with Stephanie. I wonder if you could make an introduction for me. Looks like somebody I would want to talk to. And that person will say yes or no, but
Right.
you can try that as well. I think LinkedIn is a great place to start. But again, I don't think most people get reached out to. And so they will probably say yes when they do, because I don't think it happens that often.
Yeah. And you know what? So LinkedIn is my favorite tool to use. I know I say this probably on every single episode, but it's so funny when you talk about networking on LinkedIn, because last week I met so many people that I realized that I actually did not know but thought I knew, because I always see them on LinkedIn. In
Mhm.
fact, there was someone who I went to college with. I never met her before in real life, but because we always engage on LinkedIn, when I saw her, I
Yeah.
gave her a hug. Like, oh my God. And like, instantly connected. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh my God, we never met in real life before.
Mhm.
But I mean, but it's the power of being able to utilize your network,
Right.
engaging in a way that's truly authentic, right? Because as an
Yeah.
introvert, it feels more authentic for me to comment on the engagement I see online versus me going up to you in person and saying, oh,
That's
I
right.
love that speech you just gave. I'm not going to do that. But if I see you posted on LinkedIn, I may be more prone to walk up to you and say that.
Yeah.
So even in that same vein, how do you manage networking on LinkedIn, on social media platforms like TikTok, maybe on
Yeah.
Facebook, without coming off as being pushy, right? Because there are times when some people just go straight for the ask. How do you play that middle ground so that you are building something more authentic versus, basically you're trying to use this person for something?
Yeah. So a couple of things I'll share. One is, try to, like you said, engage with their content. So if there's somebody that's posting, and you see a post or you see a video that they do, try to engage with that so that they see your name often as somebody who supports what they're doing. And then, just let them know what it is you're looking for, but see how it can be mutual. So maybe they are not looking for a job, but you never know, there could be something else that they need. So you want to ask for what you need, but also offer what you can offer to them. So if there's anybody in my network that you want to be introduced to, please let me know, because networking isn't just for looking for a job. It's also just to keep your network fresh at all times. So I would say, try not to be pushy. If somebody doesn't respond, I probably wouldn't reach out multiple times. I would send them a note. They see it or they don't see it. But I probably wouldn't nag someone if it's not somebody I talk to all the time. But the thing that I did want to mention too, that I realized since I have been looking for a job, is how many people I lost touch with
Mm,
because I was working and I wasn't thinking about networking. And it's like, so on sometimes I do feel a little bad, like I haven't talked to this person in years. I'm certainly not going to reach out to them asking if they know about any job openings, but I
right.
am going to reach out and just see how they're doing. And so some people I've just reached out to, how's it going? And we haven't talked in a while. And then as the conversation goes along, you can let them know what you're doing and what you're looking for. But I think one important lesson, and I hope I keep this at the top of my head, is just because you're good, your business is good, your job is good, doesn't mean you should stop networking. You
Mm,
want to be doing that just consistently, always looking for different people that you can meet, different people that you can help through your network all the time, so that when you are in a bind and you need something, it's not the first time in 2 years that you've talked to somebody. And so
right.
that's something that I learned, or I really thought about in the past few months.
I love that. Don't ever stop networking. I
That's
think
right.
that is great advice, because I do think that we do reach periods in our lives where we stop being intentional about networking,
Yeah.
right? I think that's really important. So I want to
Mhm.
go back on something that you said earlier about avoiding being too pushy. So what are
Yeah.
other common mistakes that you see people make as it relates to networking?
Yeah, I think not respecting people's time. So if you are asking for something, whether it's an introduction or a reference, how can you prepare enough? For example, recommendations on LinkedIn. I asked you for a recommendation recently, right? And so what can you prepare in advance? Let people know what type of recommendation you're looking for or what type of skills you want people to highlight. Don't make it so that they're starting from scratch. Make
Right.
it easy for them to say, "Yeah, absolutely, I'll do this." And so try to keep people's time in mind, so that they're not going out of their way to help you. They're just like, "Oh, of course I'll do it. Yes, I'll absolutely do that." I would say that's one thing. The second thing, like said before, I wouldn't like harass people. I reached out to you 3 times already and I haven't heard back. Like I would not do that.
Right. Mm.
So have enough people that you're reaching out to. So if one or two don't respond back to you, it's okay. And you just move on to the next person. And then I think doing some self-reflection. What is it that you want? What is it that you're really looking for? Don't say something like, I'm looking for a new job and I want to see if you can help me. That is not specific enough, right? So what's the type of job? Why do you think I usually would send people my resume, so you could take a look just to see if anything is going on at your company that fits my background. Give them some information so that they don't have to do a lot of work to help you. Make it easy for them to help you if you can.
Oh, I love that. So let me ask you this as it relates to the best way to network, in your opinion, especially in the labor market that we're currently in. Is
Yeah.
it better for you to reach out to those in your network who are considered to be like your peers, so like those who are on the same level as you, or is it better to network with those in your network that you deem to be decision makers first?
I think it's what is your goal, right? So if your goal is to find a specific job, then you're probably reaching out to both. And so you might find someone who is a decision maker and you're just simply asking them, "Do you have any tips for me?" I see that you are an HR professional or something like that in an industry that I'm pretty interested in. I didn't see any job openings on your company site, but I am curious. Do you have two or three things that you could share with me? Two or three books that I should read, or two or three people that I should follow just to help me as I prepare to work in blank industry? If it's somebody that's a peer to you, maybe you're asking them about challenges. What are some things you've faced since you've been in this industry for a while? You're doing a job that I'm really interested in doing. What are some of the challenges you face? So you can ask. I'll give you a specific example, actually. A job that I had applied to a couple weeks ago. Um, it was a chief of staff role. One of my mentors said that I should find a mentor who is a chief of staff. So
Mm,
somebody specifically in that role that I'm looking for. So I didn't know anyone. So I reached out to a recruiter friend of mine and I just asked him, "Hey, is there anybody in your network that currently is a chief of staff that you think could give me some advice?" And he said, "There's a person I know really well. She doesn't do it anymore, but she did it for like 30 years. And I'm
okay.
going to send you an introduction." And he did that on LinkedIn. And then we had a call. We had a great conversation. And so I wouldn't even say, she's my peer necessarily. She did the job. So she does something else now. She runs her business. But it's like finding people that that might know somebody that could help you and give you some advice, things like that.
Right. Oh, I love that. So I remember when I was in college, and obviously you're much younger, and so you're in a different place in your career. We were often told whenever guest speakers come on campus, it's great to network with them, but also network with the people sitting beside you, because you never know who's going to become the next executive as you all both
Yeah.
climb together. So what advice, in addition to something like that, what other advice do you give to those who are new to the job market and they're also trying to
Yeah.
figure out how do they navigate this networking space?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great advice because just like the story you told about being in line and meeting somebody you would have never thought that they
Right.
would actually be able to help you and become one of your clients, keep that in mind. Just because you're at a school event doesn't mean that everybody who has kids there isn't a professional, right? So keep in mind that when you meet all of these different people, you could be at the doctor's office. Everybody who has a doctor's appointment is a professional or a business owner, right? So keep that in mind. So if you have an opportunity anywhere you are to network or to just even using the word network can make it stressful. So just talking to people, just getting introduced to people, if you frame it like that, just saying good morning to people. Hello, how you doing? You just never know that it could spark a conversation, and you never know what that person might be able to do for you or what you might be able to do for that person. So I would say keep an open mind when you're out and about just living your life. I think the best networkers are people who look at every opportunity that happens in their life as an opportunity to meet new people, not just somebody who sits and thinks, I need to network, right? It's just a part of their life. So I would encourage people to do that. When you're in certain, let's say you're taking a training or a class or something like that. I do recommend when you go to a webinar, you go to a conference, you see a speaker, go to their LinkedIn and just thank them. If you felt it was valuable and you felt like you learned something, try to connect with them, send them a little note. I just heard your talk. I really appreciated what you shared, and I'd love to connect with you on here. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I
Right.
actually would recommend that even as a professional, not necessarily a new graduate, that you always try to connect with the people that you hear from, because what you're saying to them is, I learned something from you and I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate that. That's all you're doing. And if it turns into a business relationship, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But all you're
Right.
doing is letting people know if they've made a difference in, in your education or your life.
Yeah. Oh, I think you cut out on my end.
Okay. Am I back now?
You
Uh-oh.
went silent. I can hear you, but it's not matching
But
up.
it's frozen.
You're not frozen. It's like your voice is ahead of your video or behind it.
Okay. How about now?
No, it is so strange.
That is really weird.
It's like your
Because you
voice
didn't
is
notice this before, right?
now.
And mine looks fine and yours looks fine from my side. That is really weird.
Talking
Okay,
and
we'll give it a
you
moment.
see the video catches up. Okay, so you mentioned networking in a variety of different ways, whether it's at a conference or a group that you're in. Something that came to me as you were talking is networking within your own individual families. Because how often have we sat at Thanksgiving dinner with our family members and we have no idea what they do for a living?
Mhm.
Can we how can we be more intentional about learning more about even what our family members do intentionally, or even our own friends? Right, I saw this
Yeah.
video on TikTok many years ago of a group. They had a Christmas party, right? But then at the end of the Christmas party, they did this little fun activity where everyone put together a PowerPoint slide that told what they do for a living. And it was so funny because I remember like some of them were like, I didn't know you were a lawyer, or I didn't know you did this.
Mm.
How can we be more intentional about networking with those who are closest to us in a professional way?
Yeah, I think you said it. It's the intentionality part of it, and it's really saying to yourself this, because again, when you use the word network, it feels like work, it feels like business, it feels like a job. And so think of it more of just communicating with people. And so your friends and your family, where most of the time it's more social, it's like, yeah, don't forget that they also want to help you. They also want you to be successful. They want to see you win. So if you need help with something, let them know. I'm looking for this kind of job. Is there anybody that you've worked with in the past or anybody that you know that might be able to help me? Or I'm starting this business. Here's what I'm offering. These are the type of clients I'm looking for. Do you know anybody that you could introduce me to? And think about it more of just communicating and helping them or having them help you versus networking. That word can be a little off-putting to people. So I definitely think it's more just about communication, getting to know people, letting people get to know you a little bit, whether they're friends or family.
No, I think that's great. And I think those are the opportunities that we miss out so easily because, like you
Yeah.
said, we think about networking, we think about just how scary it is. So, kind of shifting
Yeah.
gears just a little bit there. When we are networking, how do we then turn those networking conversations into opportunities? Like, how can we make sure that we're seeing things through to the very end?
Yeah. I think that from a job perspective, I think it's a little bit different from a business perspective, but from a job perspective, it's just making sure you're following through with people. So if somebody gives you 15 minutes of their time and you have a video call with them, making sure you thank them for that. Like I said before, making sure you're engaging with whatever they're putting out on social media so that they constantly seeing your name, making sure you check in with people. How's it going? I haven't talked to you in a couple months. How are the kids? How, just
Right.
checking in with people, even if you don't need anything from them, they don't need anything from you. To be a part of your network should be that you're checking in on people, especially nowadays with so much
Right.
stuff happening in people's lives. So just checking in because it's very similar when I did like run a business full time. One of the things that I was always taught and I always remembered, people buy when they're ready to buy, right? People hire when they're ready to hire. People help when they're able to help. They have to have you top of mind though. So
Right.
when somebody says, "Man, I need a recruiter," I always think about you because we talk all the time. So you're always at the top of my head that you are a recruiter. And so depending on what type of role it is, I'm always going to be like, "Oh yeah, I know Stephanie." Right.
Right.
And so if you run a business, you want to make sure the people around you are always hearing from you. Again, you're not asking them for anything. You're just checking in. How's it going? Are you doing okay? Everything good with your business? So that when they say, somebody told me they were looking for an HR person. I need to check with Amie and see if she'd be interested. If
Right.
you're at the top of people's head, then anytime an opportunity comes up in their life, they might think of you and they might reach out to you. So what do you do? Stay in touch with people. You know what I mean? Just treat it like any other type of relationship. Your family, if you hopefully you have a good relationship with your family, you wouldn't go 2 years without talking to somebody in your family, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
You would check in, you would just be like, "What's going on? I haven't talked to you." Do that with your network. And I'm kind of talking to myself too, but do that with your network and reach out to people. "Hey, how's it going? I hadn't talked to you in forever. What's going on?" I don't want nothing. I just want to see what's going on. That type of thing I think could go a really long way.
No, I think that is all just really great advice. So, do you have any final tips that you would like to share with our viewers before we end today's episode?
I think the main thing that I actually have learned since we've been talking is the word networking can really throw you off. So think of it more of building relationships and communicating with the people that you have a relationship with and constantly trying to add people, add relationships because networking is not just for finding a job, it's not just for getting business for your company. It's also just to connect with people and build relationships with people. So I would say my advice, if you don't listen to anything else we've talked about, try to think about networking as just building relationships and not as some like standalone thing that you do because you need something. That's what I would leave people with.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Amie, thank you so much for helping me look at networking differently. I
Yeah.
promise I'm going to attend the next networking event in person, but I will start to be a little bit more intentional with networking
Yeah.
online. So thank you all so much for listening and for tuning in. If you've been liked and enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it with someone else. Until next
Mhm.
time, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Career Connections podcast with Stephanie and Amie. Connect with us on LinkedIn for more career tips, resources, and conversations that help you grow with confidence.